You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one of our listeners has remarried, and this person will be a stepmom to their adult children. One of the children is a teenager, and they don't like her. Any suggestions? I've been asked in terms of trying to help with that relationship. It's interesting because I get a lot of marriage therapy questions and family therapy questions. And as a family doctor, we do a lot of it. We don't mean to, and we get training in it, but we're not therapists. So, of course, I would always bow to the expertise of a therapist, of a family therapist, a marriage therapist. But oftentimes you kind of need to know what to do yourself. And so, when it comes to a new person being in the family, your children's reaction is not always necessarily a negative one. It's a protective one. These kids only know mom, dad, people in the family. It's very hard to take in somebody new. It's very hard to trust them. And so one thing that you need to do is acknowledge that, let them feel validated, and let them have that open means of communication to you. And I know I always say communication. So what would be the practicality of that? So first and foremost, if there's a new woman or man, whoever in the family, immediately establish they're not your mom. No one is going to replace your mom. They're not your dad. Okay. Now, that might satisfy 1% of their concern, but it has to be said. Their next concern is, what authority do they have? They're a parent now. If the child is under 18, that step parent has certain legal rights now. They may take that child to a doctor's visit. That child is a guardian now. And so then the next thing is, what role does this person have? Are they going to punish me? Are they going to spank me? Are they going to beat me? Are they going to steal from me? And so, oftentimes parents immediately say there's no role, no nothing. And then, the kid takes advantage. And, so there is some art to this, especially when you have a child that still needs child rearing and still needs a guardian in place. If you're working and stepmom is home, there still has to be some sort of respect. And if you trust that individual to babysit, to take child rear, there has to be some establishment of rules that the child has to take, just like with a babysitter. That babysitter is not that child's mommy. That babysitter is not that child's dad. But that babysitter is in charge when you're gone. And that child needs to know that. So there is room for that conversation to happen, because if the child ever had a babysitter, they knew they weren't allowed to mess around. Because if they messed around with that babysitter, they got in trouble. So there is that room. But when it's an adult child, they may never like the step person. They may never. And it might not happen right away. So your job when you are talking to your adult children is, one, again, establish, look, this is not somebody who is replacing your mom. You also have to establish, if this is because of a divorce, that oftentimes there is going to be animosity to the new person because you have been bad-mouthing their mom or dad. And so you need to tone that down, because not only did that child lose the family unit, but now they think there's a double enemy against their mom. Even if stepmom or stepdad, it doesn't have anything to do with this. Now it looks like that person is going to echo your sentiment against somebody they love. So that person needs to be neutral. That person needs to be very neutral in this and say, look, I don't know your mom. I know you, and your mom had to have been amazing because you're amazing. And so far as I'm concerned, it's love to all. That the person that comes into the family needs to also understand that there's going to be boundaries. But let your adult children know you don't have to love who I love. You don't have to do that. I understand this is not easy, having somebody else in the family. And hopefully you later do form some sort of a relationship with them, but I'm not going to force it. No timeline on that. But you do need to understand that I love this person. And I don't want to be alone. And I don't want to be a burden to you guys. I don't want to be bored where I always need to be with you guys. And need you, I need to have a life too. And this is a new chapter for me. And I still want to be close to you in this new chapter. But I understand it's difficult because we have another person. Hopefully, you and then we can all still be a happy family together. But no way is this person going to be taking any parental role because I understand that you already have a mom. If the mom or dad passed, if the parent passed, again, you have to acknowledge this is not to erase any memory. And let them know, sometimes kids don't understand that parents, need love. They need affection. They need, to still live their life. So understandable. It's very understandable that there could be this sort of, learning curve and this bumpiness to the initial road. That's why a marriage counselor can also offer suggestions. But make sure these kids have time with you alone also, because they'll start avoiding you if they think the only time they see you is with this other person. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, where you could also listen to our show. Click like and subscribe. So we are being told that we have an Alzheimer blood test. And Fox News is reporting that it achieves faster diagnoses and higher accuracy at the Mayo Clinic. It's kind of interesting. 7 million Americans currently live with Alzheimer's that we know of. I think the number could even be higher. 13 million of us are projected to have it by 2050. And even though we don't have necessarily a cure for Alzheimer's, the sooner we could identify it, the sooner we could intervene and maybe protect brain function. Mayo Clinic has now announced a new non-invasive blood test. It apparently detects a protein in the brain that signals Alzheimer's. And the goal, doctors say, is for this test to offer a convenient, less invasive alternative to traditional diagnostic methods. Now, this is the first Alzheimer's disease blood test that Mayo Clinic laboratories can offer. It's very groundbreaking. There are other commercial blood tests to look for Alzheimer's disease, but this is unique because of its accuracy. So how does it work? Well, according to Fox News, this all centers around that amyloid protein, the beta amyloid protein that causes formations of plaques. And according to Dr. Alge Cyrus Shimonich, the p-tau 217 assay assesses the accumulation of beta amyloid in the brain by measuring the amount of phosphorylated tau 217 in the test sample. Accumulation of beta amyloid in the brain can also be evaluated by imaging techniques like PET scans and cerebral spinal fluid biomarkers. The problem with the CSF biomarkers is you got to tap a person's spine to get the fluid. It's kind of invasive. A PET scan is expensive and it's not widely available. So if we could do a biomarker blood test that's non-invasive, it's cheaper, it's easier to do, and would be a fantastic option. Now, how accurate is it? They said it has a sensitivity of 92% and a specificity of 96%. Now, we talked about sensitivity and specificity. Sensitivity measures the ability of the test to correctly identify patients with the disease. Specificity measures the ability of the test to correctly identify those without the disease. All right, so what's sensitive and what's specific? So sensitivity would be like a EKG for the heart. If you're having a heart issue, that EKG will probably be abnormal. Very little is all it takes to get that EKG to show you the electrical rhythm of your heart and see that it's off. It'll pick it up pretty good. But in terms of specificity, just because your EKG is a little off doesn't always mean you have heart disease. So what's an example of a specific test? PSA. Prostate-specific antigen. If your prostate-specific antigen is high, okay, that could be inflammation of the prostate. It could be cancer. But what makes it specific is if you have prostate cancer, it'll rarely be normal. If that PSA is negative, there is a really good chance that you don't have, significant prostate cancer. You can still have early, but significant. So specificity means if you don't have it, you don't have it. So the specificity of the home COVID test is not that good. There's people with COVID that are testing negative. It's only a good specific test if you're negative really means you're negative. So we need both sensitivity and specificity. We need the COVID test to pick up the COVID easily, but just because you have a negative COVID test, we want to make sure that we can still trust that. And unfortunately, we have people that still have COVID despite negative tests. So going back to this Alzheimer's test, patients who take the test are classified as positive or negative for the presence of this accumulation of this beta amyloid. And they said in a small number of patients, the test will not be able to differentiate between the presence or absence of it. And then they may need to go then to the next step, the CSF exam or the PET scan. But what they want to do is minimize the number of false positives as compared to other tests. And also to help pick it up early. And the fact that this has been validated by the Mayo Clinic, that's some props there. Scientific experts and clinicians are behind this. And right now, doctors are able to order it. Now, some of you will say, why did this take so long? Well, it's interesting that they had to do a phosphorylated p-tau test. Because just because you do a blood test doesn't necessarily mean you know what's going on in the brain. You should be able to pick it up. If you have excess tau protein or beta amyloid protein, and we can pick up amyloid, but to say that it's in the brain, there has to be a process for it to be brain friendly and brain susceptible. And so they think this might be the way to identify it. So very, very cool. Okay, so who could get it? Can everybody get it? No. Right now, the test is only recommended for individuals 50 years of age or older, or those people who have symptoms of mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia. They say we don't have enough data to support how the test performs in younger individuals. Okay. And so, I like the idea of figuring this out early. The next question people have is, well, Dr. Daliah, what do we do? You take the test and you're positive. Now what? What do we do? So there's a few things. One is there would be some confirmation. If something like a blood test picks up that there could be this protein disruption in your brain, then we want to evaluate your brain. We would then do a scan. We would also get a neurologist involved. Because if we are preparing for a diagnosis of cognitive impairment, we want the expert that knows the brain better than anybody else to be involved. And then we are going to try to determine how much dysfunction there is. Is there dysfunction with your hearing? Is there dysfunction with your sight? Is the dysfunction that you have dangerous to you? Are you going to not be able to remember your own pills? Are you going to not remember that you drank 2 drinks before you got into a car? So we want to then check your safety. We also want to see if we could slow this down. Do you have sleep apnea? Do you have a thyroid condition? Do you have a heart condition? Do you have an exposure to heavy metals? Do you smoke? Do you drink excessive alcohol? Have you had extensive brain trauma? So we're going to want to also figure out what's going on, as well as then, check family as well. And then there are medications that may slow down some of the degenerative process. And then those might be instituted. As well as I would recommend improving oxygen to the brain. I think that would definitely slow it down, either by CPAP or maybe oxygen therapy. Not widely used, but something that I think has been overlooked. And so, yes, there is stuff. I get this from patients all the time. Dr. Daliah, I don't want colon cancer treatment. Why am I going to get a colon cancer screen? Because you're going to tell me I have colon cancer. I'm not going to do anything about it. Actually, there's a lot we could do. We could prepare. Hey, it's interesting. When I was pregnant and my doctor wanted to run the testing to see if my child had Down syndrome, I told her she didn't have to because I'm not going to abort the baby. I'm still going to have the child. And she quickly said, but I need to know what you have so I could prepare at the birth. And I'm like, oh, okay. Same thing. We need to know if you have colon cancer. So then if you do have issues, such as colon cancer going to the brain and you're falling and driving and, getting into car accidents, we still need to know. You're going to be hard pressed to find a doctor that will let you, you don't have to know, especially when you're young and you're active. When you have a patient that might already be bedridden, in a nursing home, not very active, we might forego screening tests if that person does not want treatment for that illness, especially if that's in their advanced directives. But if you are driving your grandkids to school, we want to make sure nothing's going to affect your brain. So yes, there is stuff that can be done, and it should be identified. And I know ignorance is bliss, but come on, when it comes to your health, you need to know so you can prepare for it. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many of us know somebody who's a hoarder, or we live with somebody who's a hoarder. And it can be very difficult to have a roommate, to have a loved one, to try to live in a space where there's so much crap. Okay? But there's a psychology behind it. And you can't just throw stuff out. There's an art. There's a choreography to it. Some of you guys might be hoarders yourself. And part of it is a reflection of some trauma you endured or poverty you endured. And I get it. You know, one of the things that I don't like to do is spend money on something that I spent a lot of money on when I didn't have money. So I don't want to rebuy something. I don't want to throw out something of value. I had to work hard for it. And so for those of us who might have had financial struggles, we're not going to throw out a lamp that still works. We're not going to throw out bottles of sunscreen or lotion if there's still product in there. And you're going to save it because it has value. It has money. Another thing that might have traumatized us in the past is having a family member who had vintage Playboys, vintage records, things that are now worth a lot. And we had a family member. My family did an amazing job cleaning up the house when they got sick. A lot of clutter. A lot of hoarding, was able to sell the house to help pay for the medical bills. But there was a lot of antiques and a lot of things that could have possibly been of worth. I remember seeing my grandpa's old Playboys. I was like, ooh, gross. Didn't think to myself that as an adult, those could be worth something. We didn't have eBay in the 80s. Right? Who would have thunk? And I keep seeing these articles, which doesn't help a hoarder. You keep seeing these articles that say, if you have these things, you could be making tens of thousands of dollars. And you're like, what things? Old Transformers, Underoos underwear, old Cabbage Patch Kids. And, you're like, we threw that stuff out because we got rid of clutter. So the hoarder might be thinking any of those things. They might be like, look, this was a toy from my childhood. It could be worth something later. Nobody wants to be the person who threw away something that they could have had thousands of dollars from later. So you keep. and you hold and you store and you store. And then eventually it gets to be too much. Another thing that happens in the mind of a hoarder is they may get audited by the IRS. And they're like, I need to keep all my receipts. I need to just keep everything. And then your question to you is, but where is it? You got a receipt underneath some toilet paper. You got a mop over here. You got piles of clothes. What's going on here? So how do you de-hoard? How do you declutter? Well, first and foremost, one is you have to acknowledge what it is that the hoarder is worried about. Are they worried about that they have something that could be of worth? Acknowledge it. Not a bad worry. No. We're going to get a box, a few boxes. We may even have to pay for storage. But if there is something in here that you think is going to be of worth, you're going to want to be able to find it easily. You're going to want it categorized. You're going to want it protected. What you have is not being protected under piles of dust and clothes. So let's get some containers, let's get some boxes, and let's label them and get them protected. And then do that. Find the things of worth. Next thing, well, I spent money on these clothes. I don't want, okay, are these clothes you're going to wear? I don't know. I might. Are these clothes that could help out a family? You could get a tax deduction off of certain donations. Why don't we make a donation box? Things that you are completely comfortable with parting. Now, somebody who's a hoarder might get really overwhelmed and go, I can't decide. Not a problem. Let's have a box of I can't decide. You don't have to decide today. You don't have to decide today. We could revisit it. We could look at it in a week. We could look at it in a year. But let's get it off the floor. Let's get it off the cabinet. And let's put it into an area. Let's put it into a box. Now, papers. Some of these are important papers. Okay. Let's get a scanner. Let's scan them. But the computer could crash. Not a problem. We're going to have a backup system. We're going to get thumb drives. We're going to label the thumb drives. We're going to have a backup system. And if these are important papers that you want to keep, we'll also put them in a box. So you always have the hard copy if you want. Now, why do we have this old Time magazine? Oh, that I don't know. We could throw out. Okay. So if there's something that's trash, we'll throw it out. We have the trash pile. We have the antique pile. We have the important pile. And then we have the I don't know pile. Let's say they get overwhelmed. And and after a while, they're like, I don't know. I'm afraid I'm going to be making poor decisions. Not a problem. Let's just do one room at a time. We need to make this living space livable. And you want to be able to have room. You want to have people over. And then always have cleaning stuff. So you could clean afterwards. You're going to want to vacuum. You're going to want to get rid of the dust. You're going to want to get rid of the cobwebs and show that now they have that extra room. And they have that, and a lot of times they're tired. They're overwhelmed. And so you might need to help them. They might be unmotivated. It might look like it's just too much. Well, then let's just do one at a time. Let's just clean off your desk. A clean desk really motivates people. And it really helps people become more productive. So let's just see what happens when we clean the desk. Let's see what we find. Now, let's say you need incentives. So one thing that I notice is every time I clean something, I find money. If it's a quarter, or I find something that I've always been looking for, value. So one thing you could do is say, all right, we're going to probably find money, coins, or something of value. If you're really that worried about throwing something out because you think you have something of value, then you want to find that something of value so you know. And maybe let's set up a box of something you could sell. You're going to make money off of this, I promise you. You're going to make money off of this. So get that change jar ready. So any change you find, put in there. Something that is worth selling, that's another box or another area. Make sure you also have really good trash bags because when you can throw out, there's going to be junk. You're going to want to throw that out or something that has spiders all over it. You're going to want to make sure you have good trash bags also. And then show them, look at the progress we've made. And if we do find something of value that you want to sell, we'll put it in a box. And then how do you want to sell it? Do you want to do a garage sale? Do you want to sell it on eBay? Do you want to donate it and get the tax credit? Do you want to use it as a hand-me-down? You have a family member who's pregnant. They might need some extra clothes. They have some kids. Well, I don't want to give away all my kids' clothes. That's something that I hoard. When I find a baby shoe or I find a little pair of baby pants, I want to keep it. I don't have a lot of it because I gave away the clothes or I donated them or whatever. You can have a box, but limit it to a box. If you start to see that there's too much, there's 3 pairs of pants, all looking similar. You got to pick one. You don't need to have 3 pairs of baby pants. If you want to keep, you get to pick one. And so make goals and have boundaries. And again, don't panic the hoarder. You will not be able to unclutter a hoarder's home in one try. It's going to take steps. And make sure nothing gets thrown out of value, because they will blame you and they will regress. And then they'll say, whoa, I lost out on tens of thousands of dollars because I threw out a Barbie that had a missing leg and a broken boob. We didn't throw the Barbie out. If you think a broken Barbie is of worth, it's in the possibly of worth pile that you could sell. And then let them, and then pick a day going, okay, now we're going to sell our stuff. We're going to try to sell our stuff. Let's work on it. It's great. It could be a business. We can make a business of this. Let's try it. Let's see. And if they see nobody wants to buy their crap, especially if it's broken, maybe they'll be willing to part with it. So take some work, but hopefully those tips help. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DAL.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we are being told by UPI News that the number of American teens and young adults who have been prescribed a GLP-1 weight loss injection has soared sevenfold between 2020 and 2023. Now, there's been an overall decline in other types of prescription medications for weight loss. But these GLP-1 agonists, Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, Zepbound, very popular. Now, are they safe long-term? Is it a good idea for somebody young who has some of the best metabolism ever to take them? These medications work by decreasing satiety, make you feel full, getting rid of food noise, slow down the digestive process, and you end up not really wanting to drink, not really wanting to eat that much, and you're able to say no when you wouldn't be able to say no, which is something that made it very popular because these other diet drugs like phentermine, which acted as a form of speed, they would rev you up. And they worked by not making you hungry, but they didn't work long term. People noticed they gained weight again, and they gained weight back. These GLP-1 agonists, they're easier for some to take. For others, they can't handle the side effects. They're like, I'm done. My pancreas, my stomach, the constipation, the nausea, can't handle it. But for other people, they're like, you know what? I'm not revved up. I can still sleep at night. I'm able to walk away from the chocolate cake. And so they've been able to help keep people's weight off temporarily right now because it gets your mind off the food. It works in a way on your mind. I do believe that your body will overcome. And anybody who thinks that this medication will never poop out or you won't grow a tolerance or a dependence on is very naive. Tracy Morgan said he gained 40 pounds on these medications and burned right through it. So when I get a little nervous about younger individuals who don't necessarily need them, now if you are obese and you have medical conditions or if you have diabetes, that's a whole other conversation. But you being a size 7, wanting to be a size 2, I'm a little nervous about that. Number one is we need the medications for people who need them. Number two is these medications are very expensive. So if your insurance is paying for it, somebody else is getting screwed to pay for your weight loss drug. Our insurance premiums as a whole skyrocketed because the insurance company looks like it's probably covering it for people. I don't mind if it's for people who need it. That's why I pay health insurance. I understand that it's to help sick people. But to help you become a size 2, I'd like to be a size 2. I'm not asking you to pay for it, for me. So, I do have some reservations of that. But another reason why I have a reservation with this is when you're young and your metabolism is strong and high, you're at one of the best times of your life. Sadly, many people eat crap and they drink like crap. And then all of a sudden they turn 30 and 40 and go, wait, whoa, why do I have a gut? So you should be using your 20s and your teens to learn how to eat properly and work with this amazing metabolism that you have. Because it's going to end. And if you don't learn and you end up relying on a very expensive crutch, what does that teach you? We have no data saying that you could be on this medication for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It hasn't been out that long. We've had diabetics on it, but we've had diabetics on it for diabetes, not for weight loss. Even though it might be relatively safe at lower doses, we have people spiking up to the higher doses so that they can lose faster weight for the summer. I don't know how safe that is. So if a teenager is at risk for diabetes, at risk for high blood pressure, is really struggling socially, there may be an argument for that child to be on the medication, but only after all other options have been exhausted, because there is going to be a day when you need to get off that medication. Either the side effects, either the cost, or they've run out. And I'm seeing article after article of people with this GLP-1 anxiety when they can't get their prescription. They know their weight was artificially reduced. These studies that show that some people maintain their weight, those are the ones who exercised, changed their diet, stuck with vegetables and fish, and then use that medicine as an adjunct. And I think the people who are using it wrong know they're using it wrong. And so they are panicking when they don't think they're going to be able to get their medication. And I'm telling you right now, we don't have enough for 8 million people, billion people. We have 350 million people in the U.S. Let's say 70 million are kids. We don't have 200 plus million doses for individuals who are obese that want to use it monthly, weekly. We're going to run out. You can't make enough. If we ran out of toilet paper, during COVID, we're going to run out of things. So seeing adolescents, it rose 6-fold among boys, 7-fold among girls. And the more people who learn about it, the more they're seeing these commercials, the more people are going to want it, the more people are going to try it. When you see your best friend become a size 2, that your dopamine is kicking in. And I don't blame people for wanting to go on them. They could really work. But I blame people if they do not use them wisely and understand that they might have to go off of them. And I don't want, as a taxpayer, us to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for somebody to gain all their weight back. And now we're back to square one. And by the way, the rebound weight gain, whoa. I told you there were studies saying for people who lost 20% of their weight, the blood pressure improving, the diabetes improving, the heart, they go, that weight loss was so helpful on their health. Do we have any studies of the rebound weight? Do we have any studies of those people who can't get their dose and their weight starts to go back pretty quickly? What happens to their heart? Slow and steady wins the race. It always does, including with weight loss. And some of you are going from the 0.25 to the 0.5 to the 1 to the 2 within 1 month. No. You do the 0.25 for a few weeks. Once you see it might not be working, then you may go up to the 0.5. Of course, with diabetes, it's a whole different conversation because we're trying to maintain your blood sugar. But in terms of you wanting to do recreational and cosmetic weight loss, don't go up too fast. You're going to get too used to that, and the weight won't stay off long term. You need your body to get used to the new weight that you've lost. Slow and steady wins the race. And you have to exercise. If you're not in the gym and you're on the GLP-1, I would rethink you being on the GLP-1 because you're also going to lose muscle. And if you lose muscle, you lose metabolism. You're going to have to keep your muscle up. You're going to have to be toned. And these are things that nobody's talking about. They're like, well, just buy the drug. Tell your insurance company to cover it. And these insurance companies are like, no, or we're going to raise the rates. Slow and steady wins the race, people. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.